Last time on Star Trek Deep Space Nine.
And scene.
And scene. You know, and I've even caught myself a few times watching going, scene. Yeah.
That clanking sound is a ship docking at the upper pylon, and you are docked and listening to Audio Umox, the preeminent Deep Space Nine podcast. I'm Simon Van Gelder, and this is
John Christopher.
And you are joining us for episode 21, where we will cover the last episode of season 1 of what we think is the greatest Star Trek podcast. Hell, the greatest Star Trek series.
Yeah.
Deep Space Nine. And we happen to think we're a pretty darn good podcast, too. So,
we do.
What's up, John?
I'm just thinking about cold weather and and an upcoming visit to the doctor tomorrow. So.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wait. So tomorrow's your big annual.
Tomorrow's it. So as we get into the next step here.
But first, the Tranya.
My Tranya is water.
Oh, you can't drink tonight.
Well, I probably could. It's a 12-hour fast, and they'll do blood work, checking the usual stuff for a middle-aged man, cholesterol, liver enzymes, blood sugar, those type of things.
Are you getting the finger wave?
Yes. There will be a digital exploration of my world.
I don't know where my dad always called it the old finger wave, but I never understood what that meant.
Yeah. So I'll be doing that. So I figured get some water in now. Actually, the no alcohol tonight is bad, but what will be worse is my appointment is not until 1:30, so I will not be able to have coffee in the morning.
You're going to be downright surly.
So I may have an excruciating headache.
You should,
and then I'll be hungry as well.
Knowing how caffeine dependent you are, my friend, I know for a fact you will be in a really bad way. By the way, if you hear a whirring sound, I am upstairs in a 100-year-old house, and we have to have little electric heaters going to keep the bedroom from becoming really cold. So if you hear a whirring sound, I'm so sorry. I'm up in the master bedroom in the chaise longue.
We're a few hundred miles away from each other. Mm-hmm. Temperature get brisk in your area?
Today has been, as my dear mother would say, colder than a witch's tit in a brass brassiere. It has been very chilly. The actual temp is, and I can just tell you that, it's 25 degrees outside, which I'm sure for you in the northern, a more northern climb, it's not so bad, but it's pretty cold here.
For me, it's the winds off the lake drop it a few degrees, so it's 21 here.
Ooh.
Yeah, and we'll drop down to 18, and then there'll most likely be a wind chill associated with that as well.
It's so funny because I am laying here on the chaise longue under and this is no joke, I almost want to take a picture, and maybe I will real quick and post this on the Twitter. I'm going to do this right now. I am under my classic Star Trek throw blanket.
Oh, very nice.
And it's so cuddly, cozy, warm, and pleasant. And I just took some pictures, so I'll post these soon to the Twitter account. So if you're listening now, obviously go to Umox Podcast, and you can see my lovely chubbly blanket. But it's so nice. You're not drinking a Tranya. I am actually on my second Vesper Martini. Thank you very much.
Very nice.
You know what? I am feeling markedly better than I felt in 2 months, and I've still got some issues, and sadly I think I'm almost 95% past the flu. I'm still coughing, but I'm getting better. I'm past the infection I had, but here's the thing. I did foolishly go to the gym a couple of days ago to try to get back in and I think I have a groin pull.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so I'm not I mean, it's very uncomfortable. I ordered like a brace because there's not a brace. What do you call it? A wrap around your thigh or whatever.
Right.
I mean, have you ever had one of these? Because if you have one, you just got to let it get better. There's not much people can do about it, right?
Correct. Yeah. Now, the best thing for any muscle pull is they call it rice therapy. So rest, ice, compression, and I don't know what the E is.
Enormous amounts of alcohol.
But what I'll do typically is rotate ice and heat every 20 minutes. Lots of stretching and slow stretching, not bouncy stretching, and rest, of course.
Well, that's kind of where I've been doing a lot of rest, and it's funny because when I was off the gym for almost a month and I felt fine, and then I went to the gym for the first time a few days ago, and I went to the gym, and I didn't even push it that hard, but I apparently did just enough to aggravate it again because it's painful. So anyway,
elevation is the E.
Is that what it is? Okay.
It's tough
How
to
do I
elevate
elevate my groin? I mean, seriously, that's not even my job.
Usually requires a pole dancing maneuver of some sort.
Oh my God! So I will
liberate your spine while you're at it.
Well, I ordered a wrap, and it'll be here Saturday. This is Thursday night. It'll get here Saturday, and I will put that on, and I'm going to start heading back. I can't keep laying around. I'm sick of it. It's depressing me. So anyway, I'm proud of us because we are on the verge of completing a whole season of commentary on Deep Space Nine, first season. I have mixed emotions because, and we'll save it for the end of the show, but 20 episodes in, although I'm proud of the work we've done, my friend, I don't think we've set the world on fire as far as podcasting. And that's hard for me as a veteran podcaster. I've been podcasting for almost 9 years off and on with different shows. And the show has been personally rewarding, but it's not been, though it's been rewarding personally, as a podcast, not been my most successful show I've ever done. But so we're going to decide, well, we've already decided, but we're going to let you know at the end of this show where we're going to go with the audio Umox. But please stick with us. We're not done, and by far, you have not heard the last of us.
I swear to you, we're not finished yet.
We are going to reveal some circumstances and some ideas, and we're going to take it from there. But first, I think we should leave it all, in the hands of the prophets.
Indeed.
Is that the name of this episode?
Indeed.
I'm trying to remember. All right, so that's where we are. But right now, we're going to leave it all in the hands of the prophets.
Indeed, we shall. As we join Deep Space Nine, we discover Cake Hole has made her way back to the station, just in time for the season finale.
Shut your cake hole!
And she's back to teaching now, and the classroom has gotten fairly large. Seemed to be a fairly large mix of residents of the space station, primarily Bajorans, obviously, but also Jake and Nog and the usual suspects. There seems to be a problem. She gets accosted by a Kai. I think, is it Kai Franklin, Kai Robertson, Kai?
Oh, no, is it the Kai or is it the Vedic?
Vedic. Oh yeah, Vedic Robertson.
Vedic Purile. Is that
Vedic,
who it is?
Olstein.
Oh,
Vedic. It's Vedic Wynn, I believe.
Oh, her.
Yes. Sorry, I was foreshadowing my analysis of the episode there a bit.
Ah.
Vedic Wynn is really representative of fundamentalist Bajoran religious views, and really starts taking a stand against any teaching on the station that goes against anything that is taught about the Bajoran faith, the prophets and those type of things, and really becomes anything scientific. And her line in the sand really turns into, okay, if you can't include the religious teachings of Bajor, then you shouldn't teach about science either. And it really becomes this battle of religion versus science that's been going on for hundreds of years, probably thousands of years. Keiko.
Shut your Keiko.
Keiko decides to stand up against that type of control of her classroom and teaching, and says no, that is the Vedic's role, is to teach the religious portion, and her place is to teach science and teach facts and not have a religious based curriculum. And so with that, this political religious battle starts taking place, and the Vedic encourages all the Bajoran parents to pull their kids out of school. So that's basically what happens. Of all the students, only 5 of them are children of Starfleet or non-Bajoran parents. The rest are being pulled out at the encouragement of this Vedic win.
Well,
So
okay, that's the whole show?
no, so that's the beginning part.
So I was like, I thought
Yes.
more happened
So
than that.
there's more going on than that. Concurrently, Keiko's husband,
Shut your Keiko.
Miles O'Brien,
Smiley O'Brien.
has a young up and coming officer working for him in operations. Actually, Keiko harasses him a little bit about a young woman working with
The
him.
lovely, what's her name?
Yeah.
Neela, or what is it? Well, whatever.
Yes, Neela.
Yeah,
Neela.
She's lovely.
Yeah, of course, Miles is going to have nothing of it, but is concerned that maybe there is some attraction there. I can see there's maybe a slight inner discussion about it. She just seems to be on top of her game. She's very proactive. Seems like a sharp individual, and I don't think Kate Cole really suspected anything. I think she was just harassing him.
Yeah, I never got the feeling she really cared.
Yeah. So we're introduced now to Neela, and she seems to be, just like a type A personality, really on top of her game when it comes to operations. She's like one step ahead of everything that Miles is asking her to do at her level, and so she's introduced. But that's where it stands at this point in the juncture. However, Miles then notices that as he's doing some recalibration of some Star Trek talk stuff, he noticed one of his instruments is missing. And that was very peculiar to him, because no one takes the chief's tools. I mean, that's just then. He's trying to figure out what went on. So there is one officer who's not around that they're thinking may have done it, but it just didn't. Nothing made sense. So they start scanning the station to try and find out where this instrument might be. And it's apparently it gives whoever is the holder of this thing magical powers, the ability to access places that they wouldn't be able to access otherwise. I'm assuming there's some sort of security built in to this device that allows them to make top secret changes to how the station runs, something along those lines. works.
I don't really understand the device. The EJ.
Yeah, whatever it is. Yeah. So, however, it is made of some special alloy, and so they're scanning the station trying to track it down, and they find a location and break into some place where they're getting the reading, and there's just this little pile of charred goo, which apparently is the remains of the guy that they thought stole the stuff. So their initial assumption is that he did something wrong, matter flow turned back on and just melted him into a pile of goo. Goo. Unfortunately, that's not the case. As Bashir does his autopsy, discovers that the guy was dead long before the whatever particle beam matter thing zapped him. So someone had murdered him and then used that to try and make it look like it was an accident, a tragic accident, or something, a suicide.
Right.
However, that also reveals through their exploration that someone was trying to override security systems in order to allow them to steal a runabout, is what they believe.
Right.
And they promptly lock everything down and re-secure that area. And that's when the truth is revealed about Neela. So she is now secretly talking to the Vedic and reveals that she's part of some secret plot, and now her escape plan has been foiled. And right. The Vedic tells her, she needs to, that's tragic, but that's the will of the prophets,
right? And
that she needs to go through with the mission, but it now went from from whatever mission it was to now a suicide mission.
Right.
Concurrently, there's a Kai on the planet, and Commander Sisko goes down to pay him a visit.
A Kai or a Vedic?
Oh, is he a Vedic as well?
No, the Kai is like the Pope. There's a lot of archbishops like Vedics.
Yeah, okay. Okay, fair.
If you're talking about Puerile, he is a...
Yes,
okay.
He's a Vedic. He's a Puerile Vedic.
Yes.
Sisko goes down to Bajor to visit this guy.
Puerile.
And tries to get his advice and his assistance dealing with the other Vedic Win. And he offers moral support, but does not suggest that he's going to come visit the ship or do anything to help, but certainly seems to understand the plight that Sisko is in with this fundamentalist, far right leaning evangelical. Am I projecting a little bit?
Go ahead.
Vedic that's really disrupting the normal operations of the station. However, as we get through to the middle to near the end of the episode, Vedic Puerile decides to come visit the station and address the people there and the need to interact and interface with the Federation, that everyone is kind of on the same team, and that apparently that science isn't scary. We're in a changing environment. Whatever his speech will eventually be.
Right.
He comes to the station. He's being followed by a large group of people, one of which is Neela, and she has in her hand a briefcase, and she's in the crowd. Quickly go back to ops, and Miles has discovered that whoever stole that security device used it to change the weapons array or weapons reading and warning system on the promenade. And so someone could potentially have a weapon on the promenade and the alarm systems would not go off.
Right.
And that's when Miles lets Cisco know, and Cisco quickly gets to where the Vedic is and scans the crowd. It then goes into slow-mo mode as Neela opens up the briefcase and grabs a weapon to discharge. It's obviously set on kill and not stun, and Cisco yells no,
right,
and dives and takes her out, and then they're confronted. Kira, all the Bajorans are confronted with this realization that these Bajoran, or at least one of the Bajoran religious leaders that helped lead through the resistance and was very possibly in line to become the Kai, was capable of an act of terrorism or multiple acts of terrorism in order to gain power. And this was all a ploy to get Vedic Puerile to the station in order to make an attempt on his life.
Right.
And so that was that was basically it. I mean, there were some explosions I missed. I think it blew up the schoolroom.
Yeah, there were.
And thankfully, no one injured in that incident. But it was all a ploy based on religion in order to gain additional power.
Right.
So that pretty much cover it.
Yeah,
then, I think there was a couple of interesting exchanges between Cisco and Kira about how they're disagree on things, sometimes very vocally, but at the end of the day they're on the same team. I thought that was interesting. But
right.
That's it. So what's your take on the episode?
After Duet, which by the way we put a lot of effort into our analysis and a lot of thought into it. This one was to me almost a letdown. But I should say, I'm not saying it was bad, and because it certainly moved forward the Bajoran mythos for Deep Space Nine. And I don't blame Philip Anglim. I make fun of him calling Vedic Puerile because I just find him a little. But it's the way he's written, and I found the whole Bajoran religion to be, at least for me, a little tedious, but I have to confess that Louise Fletcher, Oscar winner Louise Fletcher, is captivating in the role of the person you love to hate. Vedic Wynn. I found her when I first watched this, and I found her on rewatching. I found her to be so objectionable because I lived in a community where people like her existed, where if you disagreed with her, she would say, "Oh, God bless you, child," as if you were clearly misdirected and mistaken to oppose her beliefs. And
right. That there's something wrong with your faith if you don't agree.
Right. And I found that so disappointing, and not in the show. I mean, I find that disappointing in real life, and so disheartening. But that just speaks to the quality of her performance. Philip Anglim does a great job because He reminds me to a degree of myself in the bear with me, in the sense that he is playing someone who is hip to the game, but he's just not willing to bow to it and get into the muck with it. He understands how low the opposition will go, but he's just not 100% willing to go that low himself. Does that make sense?
It does. It does. And for me, I agree completely about Vedic Wynn as a character. It was acted well, which made me angry and made me. It brought back memories. I too, I grew up in an evangelical rural environment, and so that type of judgmentalism, that type of opposition to anything that was even slightly perceived as opposed to the strict teachings of the faith was considered sacrilege. So it became a war against science, a war against science, really a war against seeking the truth, and so that. So even though that this was a completely different religion, it rang so true because of my history fighting, both being drawn into it and fighting against it throughout my life.
Right. It almost blunted my full involvement emotionally in this episode. As soon as Vedic Wynn started her shiz, I found myself withdrawing from the episode. I was just like, okay, she's those people who made me feel less than most of my childhood and young adulthood, and then in my adulthood made me angry, and I can't indulge this. And so I found myself emotionally withdrawing from the episode.
As did I. I really found myself. It was so believable that it made me think that she's just full of crap, and I can't believe anything she says. So in a way, she may have over captured the essence of that character to the point that it affected my willingness to commit, because obviously the current situation, the current political environment, things haven't changed since this was filmed in 1990. If anything, it's gotten worse since 93. And they talked about hundreds of years ago when it happened to Galileo. It's like this seems to be a very, very sad eternal truth.
It's disheartening because you think, certainly people will get hip to the game, will be wise to people who use religion to gain control or power over people. But no, I mean, we're looking right now in 2017 as we record this, we are looking at people who are so wed to their dogma, so wed to their political beliefs and philosophy, they cannot, or they will look past a man with so much overwhelming evidence of being a pedophile, because losing his vote in the Senate endangers their overall political
agenda.
It's vile. It's disgusting.
It is. Well, and it's to the point that you have that this a religious dogma takes precedence over religious teaching.
Yeah, and my karma ran over the dogma. Sorry, couldn't help it.
Okay, so
it's just vile, but we're seeing this here because here's the thing: Vedic Wynn is kind of like a left field Vedic. She's not even like a mainstream Vedic, but she is part of this.
So like a It's like a Franklin Graham.
Yeah.
Or a Pat Robertson or a...
Yeah, but somebody who's kind of out of left field. But the people who do believe what she's selling are so vociferous, she's gaining power. That has happened in America. That has happened in other countries. It is happening.
It continues to happen.
And it's vile and it's disgusting. But it's happening.
It is. And I keep falling back on I believe it was Carl Sagan, correct me if I'm wrong, who spoke. I think he was saying, what is the quote about that your ignorance is as valid as my knowledge? Is that?
I'm not following, but it sounds like it could be something.
So let's scratch that. Let me see if I can find it.
That's okay. You know, it's ultimately, John, it's so freaking depressing. All of it is. You think that people would learn, you know? We should have learned after the freaking Inquisition, but we don't. And here's the problem. It's not just that.
It was Isaac Asimov. Can I get the quote?
Please.
Anti-intellectualism, nurtured by the false notion that democracy means that my ignorance is just as good as your knowledge.
Well, that's like the false equivalency that Fox News established 25 years ago.
Correct.
Oh, everything's got to be fair and balanced. No, the truth is not fair and balanced. The truth is it's either true or it's not.
It's the truth, right.
And this whole idea, I'm a former journalist, the whole idea that, there's two sides to every story. Well, yeah, there's a right side and a wrong side. Now, the key to this is the media does not become the arbiter instantly of what is true and what is not. However, the facts are the arbiter of what is true and what is not. And we now live in a country where the facts don't matter. It's, I'm going to appeal to your prejudices, and if I appeal to those correctly, then you'll believe me, and that becomes truth. Well, that is what's dangerous, my friends.
I agree. And the facts become fluid.
And puerile. And that's where we are. Although I shouldn't pick on Vedic Virile, because actually he's the good guy.
He's the good guy.
But you can win with Vedic Win and still lose, because she is dangerous. And if you think that we're only going to see her for one episode, well, I'm so sorry. You're going to see a lot more of Louise Fletcher's brilliant interpretation of Vedic Win as the series progresses.
Very good. Very good. So that was the cliffhanger. That's the end of season 1. Yeah. And really sets things up for what appears to be a season 2 struggle for power over Bajor, and self-rule was hinted at throughout season 1. Yeah. And then certainly the wormhole is kind of this wild card where anything could come through.
Great point.
And create an immediate threat to the entire quadrant, let alone Bajor and the greater Bajor metropolitan area
and the greater Bajor Chamber of Commerce. I don't know why.
So that is season 1. So
what did you? I mean, seriously, what did you after Duet, which to me is the sort of force? How did you feel about this episode?
To me, it was a letdown. I was expecting perhaps something with more of a cliffhanger. Tune in next season for something remarkable, and it was that made it a bit of a letdown. While I was so drawn in by the dialogue and the emotion of the previous episode, this one just was not drawn into the same level, the same degree. So for that reason, I would say it's disappointing. It's not Move Along Home by any stretch, but it was not. But it was not Duet either.
Yeah, I felt. Honestly, I can remember this when it first aired. By the way, a long time ago. I felt a little manipulated by it. I felt like, oh, they're dragging me back to this Bajoran mysticism, which I was not interested in.
Right.
And I become more interested in as things progress, but purely because of the political aspects of it, because of the way, as you watch in the seasons progress, the way Vedic Wynn manipulates religion politically. But I find the mystical side of it, the religious side of it, to be tedious and uninteresting. I never enjoyed telegraphing, but it doesn't matter because we may not be covering the next 5 or 6 series. But I never found Vedic Burial that compelling. I found Vedic Wynn compelling only in a visceral skin crawl way. I found it to be an unsatisfying cliffhanger between seasons. I was going to watch it no matter what because it was going to be 1994, and what else the hell am I going to watch?
There's nothing. Yeah, you Star Trek and chill back then.
Yeah, Star Trek and chill. Well, actually, I had Star Trek and chill in college with TNG. I mean, honestly, I did. And my brother, because you knew me then, I definitely had Star Trek and chill.
That's why I brought it up.
I appreciate it. But Star Trek and chill, yeah. But now with Discovery, have you watched Discovery, by the way?
I have not.
God, I'd be curious to hear what you think of that. Now it's so different because it's like you can go find the niche programming you want. You don't have to wait to have it delivered to you. So it's a different ethos. But okay, back to, let's just call it the way it is, the way it was.
How many bars?
Oh, gosh. 3. How about you?
Yeah, that's about right. Solid 3.
If you were watching, put yourself back in 93, 94, whatever, would you have continued to watch this series based on this episode?
If that were the only episode I had to rate the show on, probably not.
Me either.
Because going back then, that was, so the 88 election is when Pat Robertson ran for president. And that was really the hostile takeover of the Conservative Party by the religious right happened at that time. So this was a very, very raw to me. The wound was pretty open at that time because it just seemed like it was just taking the day's events and throwing them in outer space is what they were doing.
I will say this, and I remember this because I watched it during the day. There was enough during the whole season to make me kind of come back, and it was Star Trek.
Absolutely,
it was Star Trek. And by the way, TNG is still on at this point.
That's right.
And by the way, I've been ill, as you know, and listeners, and today I was flipping through the channels. I still have a hard time getting rid of this cough, and I have other issues, but it doesn't matter. And guess what was on the telly on BBC America? Best of Both Worlds, the TNG finale 2-parter.
Ah.
And I watched part of it, the end, probably last hour of it. And I was struck by just still 20 plus years later how great it was.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, the last scene where Picard is finally sitting in on the bridge cruise poker game. And he says, I should have done this a long time ago. And he starts dealing 5-card stud. And, Riker, before that happens, makes a little face because Picard says, oh, in my day, I used to be quite a poker player. And Riker makes this face to everybody yeah, right, whatever. Old man, you don't know what you're talking about. And it was just so fucking wonderful, pardon my language. It was just so fucking great. Because it was I don't know if you remember this, buddy. Do you remember before I moved away? Were you there? I hope you were. I took a job 13 years ago, something like that. And I was going to move away from where I was most of my life. And I invited all my guy buddies to come over and play poker with me. It was a night I'll never forget. And it was weird because all my best guy friends together, and we're all different, and we're all our friendships are all different. And I love you all in a different way. And you all came together, and I remember almost tearing up dealing the cards to my friends. And that night was so important to me because it was like pulling everybody together. I have one good picture of this whole night.
Yeah.
And I don't know where I'm going with this, other than to say that I'm sorry. I do and I don't. I don't know why, other than to say that as I pull this back into Deep Space Nine, we're looking at the end of a beginning, and whereas I'm talking about TNG, where it was the end of an end, and it was
right.
They had some movies, but basically, the magic was evaporating into the atmosphere, and a new beginning necessitates an ending. And so the same thing with me, when all of you all were together with me, and the only thing you had in common was you all loved me, and we were all together. We played poker one night.
Right.
So I look at DS9 and I think, is this going to end 6 years from now with everybody playing poker? And I know that it doesn't. And I know that, frankly, there's a seat at the table that's going to be empty. I'm sorry for all of you who have not watched the show and you're like, what is he talking about? Spoiler alert, blah, blah, blah. But you know what? At the end of Deep Space Nine, they're not going to all be sitting around the table looking warmly at each other and playing poker and oh my God. No, there's going to be an empty chair at the table.
Yeah, it's a little bit darker.
It's very dark. Sad, and it's never, by the way, it's never going to be resolved. So that, to me, is frankly real and more about life. It's the reason I love Deep Space Nine more than TNG, because it's real. It's more. Without going too deep, I have a dear friend, and he's basically terminally ill. And I saw him recently, and he and his wife expressed to me they want me to deliver his eulogy. And if I have questions for him about his life that I should build into the eulogy, I should let him know soon. I wrote that email today, and I sent it to him. And I'm not sad per se. I'm sad, but I'm not brokenhearted sad, but I'm sad because we only get a certain amount of time. And it's actually a blessing to know when your time's going to be up. But it's still hard. And it's harder, I think, of course, for the people you leave behind.
Sure.
Especially those of us who have to articulate what a life means. I hope listeners to the show will forgive my wool gathering here. But I guess my point is when, even if it's only the end of the first season of 7 years of Deep Space Nine, I do see that there are beginnings and there are endings, and it's all telegraphed from here.
Very good.
I know it probably makes no sense, and
Well, I mean, it makes great. You're the prophet. You see, you see the future of the episodes that I don't. So that's I'll certainly take your word for it from a strictly DS9 perspective. But the universal truth that you speak is a universal truth, and it's good analysis.
Well, thank you. And I think at this point, so how many Latinum did you give this one?
3 bars.
So 3 bars each. Yes, sir. 3 bars full.
Yes.
There's no deep sex here. I'm not even going to go there.
No.
And guess what? We find ourselves at the end of the first season, and we also find ourselves at the end of this podcast.
Yes, I believe that's the realistic conclusion and analysis is that despite the fun that we've had, that something needs to change, and so it's time. It's time.
We've had a lot of fun, and I don't truck or trade for a moment our analysis as being any inferior to any other show. But we are clearly outclassed by podcasts that have bigger audiences built and, have found more effective ways of communicating with an audience. But, John, I've been doing podcasting for almost 9 years, and I've had 6 or 7 different shows, including this one. And this one was a labor of love. We picked a niche that we loved, a show that is probably one of the least popular in the Star Trek canon, but we picked it because we had the nerve to say we love this show beyond all others. Here's why. I wish we had the fortitude to continue and do all 7 seasons, but we don't. And here's why: because despite having a couple of incredibly great fans and actually some very good casual fans, there's just not enough to justify continuing. As I've said previously, this show takes at least an hour on both of our parts to prepare, another hour and a half to record, and then it's another hour and a half minimum to produce and edit and add drop-ins and track down stuff. And by the way, it's not as easy as you might think to track down a good MP3 of anything, and a lot of it's finding a good YouTube video and then converting it, hopefully, and working, blah, blah. There's a lot of work that goes into it, and, kudos to people who have the time, in addition to their regular job and their regular family obligations, to do that. But it's become... Audio Umox is about a 4, and plus promoting, by the way, Audio Umox is a 4 to 5 hour a week proposition, and we never ran into it with the idea that, we got to get paid, and we got to get paid a lot. But at the very least, we thought, I always thought, John, well, if we get, 1,000 downloads a week, it's so worth it.
Right.
Not even close. Just to be honest, we just never got to that level. And it's funny because
our audience never found us, or we never found our audience, or
right. And I don't blame our audience.
Ships passing through the wormhole.
Right. And here's the thing. I had a show a few years ago in the Bush administration. It was a political show that featured interviews with authors and political people and actors. I had a guy from the X-Files on. I mean, that show over a 3 or 4 year period did 250,000 downloads. This show, unfortunately, is not even nearly even closely approach that. And that's why I know that it may be a guilty pleasure of a couple of good fans, and thank you. But it's not enough to sustain us, because I can make time and room and give up things in my personal life for this if I feel like people really are interested and care. But unfortunately, no. Now, do I regret a moment of it? Frick no. I mean, my God. John Christopher is one of my best friends that I'll ever have in my whole lifetime. And his joy...
The feeling is mutual.
Thank you. And my joy at exploring when you unwrap a new episode, and God, you're so insightful, and the things you present and bring to the table about these episodes has been so meaningful to me. And here's the great thing. He and I, by the way, folks, we're going to still talk about this show. I'm going to ask him, I'm going to give him like a reading list. I'm going to say, oh, God, would you please watch this, and please let's get together and get online and talk and chit-chat.
Right.
And let me hear what you think. That's going to happen. But I just can't commit to another 6 seasons of Deep Space Nine where we commit to bringing you a show that, frankly, not many people are listening to or interacting with. And Again,
Right.
I don't want to make the people who do champion us, who are excited about us, feel bad. Thank you. But, you know, everybody's got to understand there's only so many hours in the day, and we weren't hitting our marks. And it's better to resign and say, you know what, we've got 20 good episodes here. Enjoy them.
Right.
They'll be up for a little while. We're going to move on to something else. That's where we are. So before I talk about future plans about what John and I are doing, John, I'll just shut up for a minute. Anything you want to add to this?
No, not at all. I just echo what you said, which is it was tremendous fun connecting with a very long-standing friendship, and I think that was evident in the episodes and how we interact with each other, that we just have a good time. If we were talking about this, cooking, politics, drinking, regardless, we would enjoy ourselves. So hopefully for the listeners that did download the casts, that hopefully they took some of that joy and laughter. Hopefully, as well, some insight on my part, your depth of knowledge, and encyclopedic ability to connect actors in full makeup with who they were on an episode of Law and Order 10 years ago. You know, that's just unsurpassed. So, but speaking, just going all the way back around, I had a good time, but it's just knowing where we stand. I think this chapter of the podcast needs to end, and I'm committed, and I hope you are as well, to trying something else, and maybe those who have enjoyed it will travel with us.
Exactly. It's not sad or anything. It's how many cult favorite shows come on for a season or two and disappear, and I'd like to think we're a cult favorite, John. Here's the thing. Let's get right to it. John and I are not going anywhere, in the sense that we are not going to continue to be available to people who care about what we're saying, but we're going to take it out of the context of Star Trek Deep Space Nine. I do reserve the right, and I do reserve the idea, and I'm talking to John about this, and we're not 100% on this yet. I would like for both of us, he and I, to submit 3 to 5 of our favorite episodes per season of the next 6 seasons of Deep Space Nine, and we pick, each of us, total of maybe 3 per season to talk about. That'll be tough, especially towards the end when the show really freaking cooks. But, I can't, John, I can't do this where it's we don't ever talk about In the Pale Moonlight, or we don't talk about What We Leave Behind, or we don't talk about, there's so many really, really good episodes out there. And that's what hurts my heart more than anything. It's just second season, pretty good. Third season, pretty good. Fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh. Oh, there's so much great. And, our buddy Mike Feeney, God, our biggest fan on Twitter, Finney, not Feeney, excuse me, Mike, sorry. Finney can help it. He has said, you guys don't have to just completely quit. You could just cover your favorites. And he's not wrong. And if you're a listener and you're subscribed, stay subscribed to this feed, because we're not going to tell you right now, but there will be other episodes, special episodes, but we're just not going to commit to covering all 20, 21, 22 episodes per season for the next 6 years. We're not going to be able to do that. What we may do is say, hey, welcome back to a Audio Umok special, and today we're going to cover episode this, and this, or we may episode this, and by the way, come back in a week or so, we'll have an episode this, and we may do that. I don't want to make it like we're dying or anything, for God's sake. We're not yet. I have a groin pull, but I'm not dead. So I think what we should say, and I don't know, John, is it okay to take the mask off?
Let the cat out of the bag?
All right.
Sure.
Okay, first of all, if you've not followed carefully Simon Van Gelder and John Christopher. Okay, I will just reveal who I am. Simon Van Gelder is a character from the original series. Dagger of the Mind was the episode, and he was a guy who lost his mind. Yes, and the original Enterprise crew helped Simon Van Gelder get his shiz back together, and blah, blah, blah. So my actual real name is not Simon Van Gelder, it's Alex. I'm not going to give you my last name, who cares? My name's Alex. And John, what about you?
So like you, my character, my pseudonym is John Christopher was an original series character as well. He was an Air Force captain in the 1960s that got drawn onto the Enterprise during a time travel episode. You probably know the name of it.
Is yesterday.
There we go.
Great episode.
And they determined that he was going to just stay on the ship for forever because his life was so insignificant. And then they did some research and discovered that though his life was fairly insignificant and wouldn't affect the space-time continuum, he did have I believe a grandchild or great grandchild that helped develop the first warp engine on Earth and something
he went to
that. So,
I don't know, a first mission to somewhere important. Yeah,
right,
and your name, by the way, is Brian.
My name is Brian,
and
some call me Brain.
Brain, and we have been friends for 30 plus years.
30 plus years.
And so Brian, and Alex, and here we are. So if you come back for Audio Mux, we'll be John and Simon, but now you know the secret. And here's the thing: we also have very strong opinions, as you should, by the way, about the direction our country is going, and we are contemplating. And please watch this space. If you like our opinions and our direction, it's pretty clear. If you like them, that you understand where we are philosophically and politically, then you might be interested in our continued
audio exploits.
Yeah, and our commentary. And so we are thinking very seriously about doing a public affairs podcast, talking about what's going on. So we're thinking about that. And actually, too, we've also thought about, this is funny because we used to be roommates. We have also thought very seriously about doing laugh if you will, an Odd Couple podcast based on the
original series.
The original series with Jack Klugman and Tony Randall. We've thought about covering the episodes of that series, having fun with that a little bit. 30-minute show. So we would have a show that was kind of very quick about the episode's plot, and then we talk a little bit about trivia and about what we thought of it and go from there. That's something we're thinking about doing for 2018. So there may be you may be losing in a way the audio umox, but you may be, if you're interested, gaining a couple of shows, a public affairs show and a silly show about the Odd Couple, along with periodic special episodes of Audio Umox coming at you. So, frankly, you know what, John? You know what, Brian? I don't think we're people are losing anything. If you like what if you smell what the rock's cooking up here, actually, you're getting more.
Right. Yeah, because depending on what direction we go, I mean, we'd be focused more exclusively on our opinion and analysis of the day's events and how it relates to us, our lives, and our relationships, unencumbered by a deep analysis of a fictional program.
Yeah.
Or it could be a